Good morning. Whoops. Hi. I'm going to be talking about widgets. I was told 3 minutes ago that my title is actually incorrect because I'm talking about a lot more than just widgets. I'm talking about the widget architecture in Wakanda, our widgets API, using jQuery with Wakanda widgets, writing functions for the entire widget class or a specific widget class, creating widgets dynamically, developing your own widgets, and integrating third-party widgets. The first thing I'm going to talk about is our widget architecture, which most of our widgets are defined in div tags. With a few exceptions, we try to use the HTML tags when possible. So I'm going to show you, whoops. Sorry about this. I've done this 3 times today. So in Wakanda, we have our selection of widgets that you can add to your interface page. So here I have a selection of widgets. In the source code of our page, you'll see that each widget is actually defined in an HTML tag. Okay, well. Sorry, well. I made this bigger a few times. Hold. What? It doesn't work. Sorry. I tried that earlier. That's why I keep going through the menu. Can you see it now, Walt?
Yes.
Thanks. So as you can see, we have each of our widgets is defined in an HTML tag. It's interesting to know about the HTML tags because when you're using jQuery, for example, you can add and remove some of the attributes that are native to an HTML tag, like the input. Let me go back to design. Yep. Now my Mac doesn't work. Okay. So in our widgets API, we have functions that we use to retrieve and modify properties and styles for our widgets. We have a widget class that is inherited by all the widgets, and then we have specific functions for widgets as well. First, I'm going to go over the syntax, which, as you can see, the first is our standard syntax in Wakanda. The $$ is what I normally use in code. The other I use a lot more in debugging, so I can get my list of widgets that are on my page. And just as a reminder, the jQuery syntax, which retrieves the DOM node. My Mac doesn't work. So here, I'll just show you quickly how to. So what's great about the WAF widgets is that I'm able to get all of my widgets that are on my page, so I don't have to go and search for them each time. So I'll look for this. So this is the object that's returned by Wakanda. Well, this is the widget in our Wakanda widget. And if we were looking at the DOM node, you'd see that we're actually going to get the, oops. If I did it correctly. I know. Whoops. No. It's just $1. And then I get the DOM node, which is my HTML element. I guess I did something with my, oop. I don't know, my command tab isn't working anymore. So we can actually set and get values in our, using the API. And when we set a value, which is, so we have a data source bound to our widget, for example, my state. I can actually, I hope I remember the name of my, I don't remember it. So I'm going to set the value of my state to Oregon. So here I have, this is the widget that I'm going to be modifying. And in this widget, because it's bound to the same data source here, and my radio buttons and my combo box, it's going to actually update in these 3 other widgets as well. And when I go to my actual data, it's actually modified. Now, it's not saved yet until I save it. But just at least it's updated in all of my widgets. There are some examples. Actually, I was going to show something else. In my widget class, for example, do this all by hand. For example, in the data grid, I have a draggable option that allows you to take your grid and drag it anywhere you'd like on the screen. However, my text input, for example, doesn't have that option available to me, but in my widget API, I can actually make that. So right now, it's not draggable. I can't drag my widget, but just by calling one line of command, I can actually make it draggable. We also have other functions that are not in our widget API that allows you to kind of enhance the behavior of certain widgets. So in our grid or in our chart, for example, I can actually change the colors dynamically. And for our slider, which normally has only one handle, I can actually add another handle to it. And now I have 2 values to get a range. So these are things that you can do with the Widgets API that are specific to each widget. Well, when you asked me to change my thing, now I can't get my Mac to work. You broke it. So for other functions that you might want to use, if anyone uses jQuery, they're great to use on our widgets because you can actually add and remove attributes to our HTML tags, which is why we showed you the structure of our widgets. And you can modify styles directly, like CSS. You can also add animation features as well. I should say animation. That works. Yep. So on jQuery, for example, sometimes when you have a grid on your page, we kind of get this nice little horizontal scroll bar that we can actually hide in jQuery. And also, if you want to hide your sort indicators for people so they don't see them, you can actually do that with jQuery as well. In our Widgets API, we actually can show and hide a widget. And using jQuery, I can actually use different animation features to show and hide it a little more interestingly. Now, as I said before, the text input widget is actually an input HTML tag. So the attribute read only actually exists. So in jQuery, I can actually add that. So right now, I can modify my text input. And if I wanted to make it read only, then I could come in here, and now I'm unable to modify it back. And if I wanted to, I can make it read write again and add my data, as I did before. So jQuery is pretty powerful. It allows you to do a lot of different features. Let me see. I'll show you my code real quick. If I stop. Yep. So. And actually, each one is basically one line of code. So this was to hide the scroll bars. Here was to hide my sort indicators, which is what I used. I went through the inspector and found the class that has the sort. Whoops, sorry. This is our fade toggle and slide toggle in jQuery, which is why I'm passing to it, obviously, the jQuery syntax. And in our API, I'm just passing the object. And here's how you add and remove an attribute from an HTML tag. So you can also write functions to add to the whole widget class, which would be make it available to all of the widgets or to a specific widget class. I'm going to first show you how I created a, oops. So I created a JavaScript file called application.js that's in my web folder. And if I want to, I can import it into any of my web pages. We have a library that's pre-installed with Wakanday, which is called Beauty Tips, which allows you to display a text, a box where you can enter data. I mean, you can actually display data. And actually, we use it for the grid to show the picture when you hover over it. So these are just the parameters of what I wanted it to look like. And this one I'm adding into the entire widget class, so which means I can have it available for all of my widgets on screen. And then I created another function that I called call button alert that I'm only adding to the button class. chiant ce truc. C'est pas possible ça. Oops, I didn't show you where I called my code. So in my functions, actually in my onload, I'm actually setting up my text messages. So I have 3 of them on 3 different widgets. Then for my button, I'm actually calling my function call button alert. So now when I hover over the widgets that I specified, I actually have my beauty tip that comes up that I've set up. And then on my buttons, I actually have my alert that shows up. So you can actually add this directly to your widget. I'll show you that quickly. So as you can see, besides all of the widget class, the widget class function, actually I also have my function, which was added. So I have it here. And then if I wanted to, I could even display it quickly. Using jQuery. So I can show and hide it as well. So now it's actually going to be available. But you can also see that I don't have my other function, which I created for my button. I don't have my call button. But if I go to a button, I'll see it there. Oops. Call button alert. Which is on my save button. Actually, no, I put it on my next button, sorry. Oops. Can't get to my page. There we go. So now you can also create widgets dynamically. There's basically 3 steps. You need to create the DOM node on your page, an instance of the widgets class, and then if you need it, define the widgets, define the data source. So let me go back to Wakanda. So here I'll show you the code really quickly. So this is just to create a button, a simple button. So first I create my DOM node, adding my attributes to it, and then I create my widget. As you can see, my ID is the same on both. And then I've also added a small alert just so that you know that I clicked the button. Then, sorry about that, in my second example, I'm creating another button. Normally you'd create the data source first, but because I already have it created on my page with my grid, I'm actually just creating my button again. And in this time, I'm actually using an automatic action that's in Wakanda for our widget. And I'm binding it to the data source company, which is the same as my page. Just same as this. Same as the one that I have on my grid. Oops. So here I create my button, and I have my event handler as well, which was just on click. And here I can actually, this is the standard Wakanda button, my previous, and I'm actually create a next button. That allows me to do the same thing. And if I look in my widgets, whoops, I'll see that I have my next button, just like all my other widgets. And I can actually have all of its API as well. I don't have my. So developing a custom widget. We actually wrote a whole document on this. And the example I'm going to show you is actually the widget that I created with one of our developers. We created a hyperlink widget so that it's bound to a data source. So this one is a URL and an email so that they're actually live, so that I can actually go to the websites and use it just as a typical URL, which we can't do yet in Wakanda. So the first thing that we had to do was get the template, which I'll do. First, I'll show you in Wakanda. So this is our widget. So I placed this widget in the miscellaneous controls area. And as you can see, the template actually comes pretty much like this. However, you just have to modify the data for your widget. So as you can see, I'm in the miscellaneous controls section. Data binding is an internal Wakanda property that connects me to this, which is my data sources. So it's going to manage that internally. These are my other properties that I added myself. And then the data label is another internal property for Wakanda. So this will actually manage the adding of another widget, which is the label widget. Plus, when you go to the styles, it's going to actually add this widget here so that you can actually customize it as well if you'd like, which I did nothing for this part of it. Wakanda managed that internally. Then I have my events, which are just standard mouse events. Whoops. My standard mouse events. And then this is for the styles sheet, the styles tab. So it defines which options I'm going to allow it to be displayed. Then I have my onIt function. These are both standard functions, onIt and onDesign. So you can pretty much do anything in these, both of these, except for the onIt. It has to be exactly this way with just your widget class. And then the other file that you need for your widget is the JavaScript file, which is basically what's going to build your widget and put it on the page. So for example, I took a lot of the data that you enter in the properties. And for example, if it has, I did a quick and dirty search to see if it was an email address. So if it has an @ sign, I just add the mail to create a link. So this is where I build my link, and then I add it to my DOM node, which is why you see it published as an actual href. And this is actually the template that comes with it, with a lot more comments so that you can follow it a little bit better, along with the documentation. And as you can see, because it's actually in my widget class, again, it's going to have all of my functions as well. So I can even add my other beauty tip message again. So that now when I'm up here. So it's kind of nice to have all of these linked together. So sometimes, though, if you don't want to create your own widget, you can actually find a plugin or widget that's already been created and install it into Wakanda by pretty much doing the same thing, by getting the template, modifying the properties, and creating your constructor, and then defining which properties and events you want to display in your GUI designer. So back in Paris, the developer that I work with created a slideshow, which first I'll show you what it looks like in, let's see, here we go. So this is the slideshow we wanted to take. It's a jQuery plugin, and we just wanted to add this to one of our web applications. So the first thing they had to do was figure out how the markup was done. So basically what needs to be displayed on page for this plugin to work, besides obviously having its jQuery, which we needed, and also its own JavaScript file. So then when we were in Wakanda, so we basically just added this widget, which I'll show you in Wakanda how we did that. Slides. So again, this one we added to our containers section. And so here are all the properties that we added to our configuration file. The first two are obviously standard for all Wakanda widgets. Wakanda actually manages my ID number as well for me. And this is where we have what we call a grid, where we added each specific image with its text. And also, we can actually modify the text if we want at the bottom through our styles sheet. Actually, I have a few examples. We actually have 2 other examples. Let me see. So we also have examples by Widgmo, which is another widget constructor. They make widgets that you can use. So you can pretty much download any of these widgets, buy them, and install them into Wakanday. We actually used their grid so that we could have a different look and feel to it. Actually, it has some pretty cool options as well that you can drag and columns around. You can sort. We also took their slider. So in this one, for example, I can even change my value here. And it's going to change my slider and obviously my values. So they're all linked. And I can also put it down to, I can also change it this way. Both of these widgets, actually, you can modify their styles in our styles panel. I'll show you quickly. So here we have the container, we have the headers. As you can tell, some of them get selected, and you can actually change some of these values. Oops, sorry, I know this is a... Also, the same is true for the slider. We actually have different values that we actually updated all of these in Wakanday directly. There's nothing that's done in the widget itself. And that is our last example. We have Kendo UI. So we took their grid as well and just implemented it and attached it to our data source and retrieved our data into it. This went a lot fast. So as you can see, our architecture is quite open. So we're able to use either jQuery, or you can also add other widgets and plugins to your web applications. I don't know if you have any questions about the widgets.